What up, y'all? Terry Warfield. Yo, I hope you're having a good day so far. If this is the first time here, a big fat welcome to you. And if you're part of the fam, you're part of the squad, and you came back, welcome back. Yo, we got to do a quick family check before we move forward with anything, man. Currently, we are at 9,071 of us in the squad, in the family, man. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Let's keep this going. Now, before we get into today's meat and potatoes, I got to ask a favor for you. Go ahead and like this video right now, and if you haven't subscribed, do it now. The reason I'm asking that of you is because so many of y'all are in the comments like, yo, Terry, you deserve more subs, you need more likes and stuff like that. Well, we got to tell the algorithm to push my content, and you liking, you commenting or disliking, whatever it is you choose to do, those are the things that tells the algorithm, hey, let's push Terry Warfield's content to more people. So please go ahead and do that right now. Without further ado, let's get into the meat and potatoes today, man. We got to talk about why, for me, the 2020 iPad Pro, even though it is good, it's really good, I'm gonna tell you all about that in 1 second, is not a MacBook Pro replacement. Apple says that, hey, this is the future, this is the MacBook Pro replacement, this is a Windows PC replacement, and I get it, for some people it may be, but for me it's not, and I got 6 reasons why. This is not my primary machine. I alluded to that in the first iPad video I made, which is right up there. Sorry about the fire detector. I swear I'm gonna change that battery. I get it. Some people, this is their only machine, and for those people, the iPad Pro may be more than enough. I'm not knocking that. I'm not saying that it can't be a replacement for some people. Now, what it is a absolutely fantastic device. The iPad Pro, the 2020 version, is quickly becoming my favorite device that I've ever used. And that is a bold statement. It is that good. It's got great battery life. The display is beautiful. Sure, maybe it could be LED, but it's 120 Hertz LCD. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's power for days. The speakers are great. Performance is great. The new cameras are great, even though I'll never use them. It's great to have all that stuff in the iPad Pro. Could I pick it apart and say, hey, it needs an extra USB-C port or blah, blah, blah? Yeah, I could. But this is the first device in a long time that I've spent money on that I did not immediately have buyer's remorse. So let's just jump into the things that, for me, X this thing out as being a primary machine. And crazy enough, I had to take notes on my iPad because I can't remember. I would have forgot all of this. The lack of true multitasking. Sure, it can handle 2 or 3 tasks at a time, but I'm a person who needs windows. Like I need to be able to drag something over here, drag something over here, and be able to exchange information or decide what information I need at any given time See, with the iPad, yeah, you could do split screen, and it's great that you can do split screen on such a small device. And if you have the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, be able to run both apps as intended. Like the 11-inch, sometimes you do get mobile versus things like that because of the screen size. However, that's not a true multitasking experience, and people who use MacBooks or PCs know what I'm talking about. It's a good thing to have, you know what I'm saying? While you're sitting on the couch, you need to do more than one thing at a time. However, it doesn't replace, for me, true multitasking, and that's a huge thing. Moving on to the second thing, the lack of a true file system. Now, yes, iOS 13 and iPadOS offer a way more robust file structure system than iOS ever had. However, it is still super limited in comparison to what you get on a macOS device or Windows machine. There's just so much stuff that it can't do. Even though it's a lot better than what it used to be, right now it cannot replace an actual file system from a Mac or Windows device. Third deal breaker for me is lack of Thunderbolt 3. So yeah, it's dope that the iPad Pro has USB-C. Yeah, you can hook up external hard drives, you can hook up adapters to hook up even more stuff and still power those devices at the same time. So yeah, USB-C is great, but I'm gonna tell you one specific reason why I need Thunderbolt 3, and that's if I wanted to connect it to an external monitor over Thunderbolt 3. Right now, my MacBook Pro stays pretty much docked on my desk because it has Thunderbolt 3. So I can do those advanced things on my MacBook Pro that I can't do on my iPad, and have it on a much bigger display that gives me way more real estate to move stuff around and multitask, a way bigger timeline for editing and stuff like that. When I plug up the iPad Pro to a monitor, you know what I get? A little 4x3 box on this huge 34-inch ultra wide. Now, I know there's some workarounds and, you know, hacks and apps and all that stuff that you can download. Listen, I want native capability, man. When I want to do live streaming and stuff like that, I can't plug in, for example, a cam link to the iPad Pro and feed my HDMI signal into the iPad. I can use a capture device to capture what's coming out of it, but when it comes to feeding it into it to use it as like a live streaming device, if I wanted to use my camera or something like that to feed HDMI into the computer, there is no solution to that. Again, another deal breaker. And again, I realize that all of these things may not be important to other people. However, they are for me. Let's move on to the last two things, and these are the big deals. Number 5. The cost to kit this thing out to make it act like a laptop. I'm gonna say that again. The cost of kitting the iPad Pro out to make it act like a laptop. Listen, the iPad Pro for me is all about simplistic power, minimalism, being able to whip out a device and sit it on my lap without the need for any additional accessories and keyboards and etc. That's what the iPad Pro for me is all about. Now again, I get it if this is your only device, then it makes sense. But for me to drop $800 on an iPad Pro, then turn around and let's just say the new Magic Keyboard, another $400, $100 for Apple Pencil. Then I gotta buy apps and stuff like that, and if I need to, upgrade my iCloud storage. Before I know it, I'm at $1,500, and I got a cheaper iPad. So imagine if you got like a higher capacity 12.9 inch with LTE and all that stuff, you could be out of $2,000 real easy. If I'm gonna spend all of that money and do all of that to kit an iPad Pro out, I'ma just get out my freaking MacBook. Like, I'm not about to do all of that to kit this thing out to still have a limited OS and the bottlenecks that the iPad Pro has. Now, again, it's really good at the stuff it does do, but the things that it can't do is, for me, they're serious bottlenecks. And this brings me to the last thing, and I saved the biggest bottleneck for last for me, and that is the lack of Final Cut Pro. Listen, let's talk about LumaFusion, right? LumaFusion is a fantastic app. I would be lying to you if I said LumaFusion wasn't great. The fact that we can do 4K video editing and do all of this stuff from an iPad Pro in a super easy to use Final Cut-ish type environment is amazing to me. So LumaFusion is really good for like those basic edits where you just need to do like timeline cuts, add some music, slap a grade on, you know, add a few transitions here and there. It's really good for that stuff. But let me tell you what it's not good for. And again, this is not a knock on LumaFusion, because LumaFusion for $30 is absolutely freaking fantastic. And I know there's been a huge announcement that Final Cut Pro is coming for the iPad Pro, which I cannot wait for. However, I'm very interested to see how that works before we move forward. I'm sure it's going to be some stripped down version, because I'm sure that they know a lot of people only hold on to MacBook Pros for Final Cut Pro. Now that the iPad Pro can basically do all of this crazy stuff, but I guess time will tell. If you ask me, it's gonna be like a stripped down version that will allow you to get back to a regular machine to kind of pick up where you left off, similar to how the latest version of LumaFusion allows you to export the XML. I'm thinking something like that. And before we move on, I just want to say I can't wait to see what the next version of LumaFusion brings. I make a lot of YouTube videos, and I put a lot of effort into my YouTube videos, and I'm not saying that all of the things that I use in Final Cut Pro cannot be done in LumaFusion. However, it's kind of like Final Cut versus Premiere, right? Final Cut may take me 2 keystrokes, Premiere may take me 7 or 8. And it's the same thing with LumaFusion. When it comes to like speed ramping, for example, for Final Cut, it's one shortcut. For LumaFusion, I literally have to take this long process to gradually increase every single little clip, or gradually go through and use a keyframe to create that speed ramp effect. And I get it, that's probably infinitesimal for some people, but I use a lot of speed ramping. Y'all know I'm the slow-mo king. Not being able to do that in a quick way is a big deal for me. Like I said, it may come in a future update for LumaFusion, but right now, it doesn't. Then you add in things like the lack of scopes. Yeah, you can color grade in LumaFusion, you can use LUTs in LumaFusion. Without scopes, you don't know if your exposure is dialed in or your colors are dialed in or anything like that. Then you got things like the lack of multicam support, being able to sync audio, like all of those smaller things that I guess the advanced video editors, and I'm not even considering myself advanced because I'm only editing 1 or 2 cameras at a time. I'm not like sharing projects and doing crazy edits with, you know, crazy formats and stuff like that. But it's more than you can do in LumaFusion, at least easily. And then lastly, like just the lack of available plugins. There's literally like 1 or 2 dudes out there that make plugins for LumaFusion, but again, they have to use backdoors and creative ways to get the same stuff done in LumaFusion that I can do in Final Cut Pro in no time. So those are the 6 things that are preventing me from being able to use the iPad Pro as my only device. Now, let me back up and again say the iPad Pro is freaking amazing. Since I've owned this thing, I have noticed that my MacBook Pro has stayed in the dock a lot more. And a lot of those things that I normally do on my MacBook Pro, such as like photo editing, Affinity on iPad Pro is literally freaking mind-blowing. Procreate, LumaFusion, like all of these apps make the iPad very, very good at what it does, and it works just fine, especially with an Apple Pencil. However, it's those 6 bottlenecks that would either prevent me from this being my only device or would prevent me from ultimately putting my MacBook Pro on the shelf. I know I talked your ear off. I would love to know your thoughts and your opinions. Let me know what you think. Is this thing your only machine? Is it your replacement for your computer? How have you found that it's been working for you? I would love to know your thoughts, man. Sorry this wasn't like full of fun and all that stuff, but I had to get that out. Like it was trapped in my head and I had to get it out. Hope y'all enjoyed the video, man. Piece of chicken grease. I'm out. Terry Warfield.